Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Talent Acquisition Leadership Keynotes. For those of you who are new, the purpose of talk is to elevate, enable, and empower TA professionals to be more effective at their job, elevate the profession, and have some fun while we're doing it. Today, we're going to talk about using agencies strategically. It's an important topic, and I think there's a lot to unpack here. So I'm looking forward to this conversation. So first, let me review the talk platform. And I'm just going to wait 1 second just because I hear a lot of people clicking in. It's still ringing quite a bit. Okay. I think we're ready to go. So for those of you who are new to the platform, please join, and look around the platform and play around with it and give us feedback. We're putting a lot of resources into building this and making it more effective for you all to collaborate, connect, and really share best practices. And when you log in, there will be your recent activity feeds. There's a full event management tool. I can't tell you enough that this is a place where you can create your own events. You can go in and create lunch and learns. You can go and create sponsored events. If you want to invite a vendor to pay for fancy meal, they will definitely come to your city and do it and lead an interesting conversation. And you can create Zoom events if you want to do that. You can see that we've been running literally hundreds and hundreds of events in the last couple of years. So we really want to get people to use the event tool and create your own events. Either you can create a national Zoom event or a local live event. There's also a forum where you can have private conversations with other TA leaders behind the firewall. Great place to really collaborate, lots of conversations. There's polling. You can run your own surveys. And then there's a membership directory where you can connect in and review people in your chapter, your industry, your level, and sort them and connect. There's two other great there's a vendor directory where there's about 500 vendors. So whether you're looking for an ATS or any other kind of tool, it's a great place to go in and really view and look and see verified reviews of companies that are and collaborate with real users of those products. Also, more recently, we launched an agency directory. This is very relevant for this conversation today. It's the first viable agency directory in the world. There's no other agency directory where you can come in and use structured search to find relevant agencies that have been vetted based on their industry, their functional role, location, and you can click in and you can view them and you can read about them, connect with them, and you can see verified reviews from companies and candidates. So it's a great place to really find agencies. So it'll be sort of relevant to the conversation today. So please play around with that and give us your feedback. So today, using agencies strategically. Rules of the road, please turn on your cameras and engage. These discussions are not passive discussions. It's really important you lean in. Let's talk about the challenges with using agencies and when and why you use them, what's not working, what's working, and a dream solution. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Norm, and he's going to kick off the conversation.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Bryn. So yeah, I think we'll go down a path. I think we can start with some general trends. High level why we use agencies, what you're seeing in the marketplace right now, and how you run things at your company, and then we'll go into maybe some tools and some tips, right? So let's just start out on a positive note, right? Why do you all use agencies? Like, what are some of the benefits that you get from going to third party? Anybody want to jump in?
I can jump in.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead. Yeah.
So, I mean, for us over here at MJH Life Sciences, we use agencies for two particular reasons. Number one, obviously it helps out the team, especially with us, continuing to expand out the talent acquisition team. So from a bandwidth perspective, it's really helpful. It's also very beneficial to have access to resources that focus in specific areas that maybe like the team isn't exactly strong in. So having access to individuals that have that reach and connection to certain areas and niche markets is really, really beneficial.
Yeah, that's great. And that brings up a lot of points. I think we can take this in a number of different ways, but does anybody else want to add anything to that before we before we shift it?
Yeah, hey, this is Valerie with Core Civic. And I know a lot of you guys know me, but for us, because of what I do and the number of facilities that we have across the country, and with the pandemic, it was very, very difficult to fill the number of vacancies that we had with the number of recruiting staff. So our only solution and a viable solution was to use their third-party recruiters for our most critical positions. And it did really help a lot.
Just curious, did other people see that trend, and is it leveling out? Where are we trending right now as far as during the pandemic? Did you see more third-party usage? Has it leveled back out to like pre-pandemic levels, or what is everybody seeing at your own companies?
I mean, for healthcare, it varies, right? Obviously, in healthcare, the use of third party and registry nursing was the highest spend we've ever spent, right? But just try to backfill and with the travel nursing. And now that the pandemic, I think, is normalizing, knock on wood, a little bit, we're seeing the trend go in the opposite direction what it was pre-pandemic. So travel nursing contracts are starting to be reduced or cut, which allows us then to go in internally and recruit those nurses. So the trend is going in the other direction, not as much as I'd like to see yet, but I think it will down the road. Yeah.
Right. Other thoughts, different industries or different roles that people are seeing a trend?
So I'm kind of in a unique spot where I spent over 4 years on the internal side, and now I've moved to more of a time and materials billing approach consulting TA firm. And I know at least on the internal side, usually we would engage, we use Recruitify, obviously, which is great because that allows that massive vendor list to potentially submit that needle in a haystack candidate. But if we engage with specific vendors, it's usually at a really peak period of overall volume for recs. And these were the kind of niche, hard to fill ones that was really going to drain my team's time during that period. And so we outsourced those few so we could handle the majority. And now what I'm seeing on the consulting side is, especially a lot of companies that had to either do reduction in force or weren't able to scale up their TA, or HR is just flooded with everything going on post-pandemic. They're reaching out to our consulting firm to take on definitely some of those more strategic hires that they need in place before those floodgates open, or they just don't have a TA team in place yet because they weren't able to hire one during the pandemic. And then some of our larger clients that I think, to what Val just mentioned, are so overwhelmed that we kind of operate as an offshoot, working directly, almost reporting into their TA director. It's almost contracted recruiters on a consulting basis for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense. Now, both Tyler and Joseph both kind of mentioned, using agencies as like a strategic part of the plan to free up time, right? Like a capacity release valve for your own internal team. I'm curious how do you include that as part of your plan? Are you assuming every year that, okay, 2% or 5% or 10% or whatever, we're going to outsource to agency? Who determines that? Does it all fall on the roles? And I've heard different things. I was having a conversation with someone last night who said that all of the budget falls in TA. And so they do that. They have to budget ahead of time. Oh, we expect to spend $500,000 a year on third parties this year. Traditionally, I hear that it kind of comes from the business units. And so then you don't necessarily know exactly when it's coming or where it's coming. It depends on the roles you're getting from those business units and whether they have approval. So I'm curious, how does it work in your company? Are you getting the approvals from the business units? Do you have a set aside budget? Is it part of your overall strategic plan, or is it kind of ad hoc as they're coming in?
So for us, we go into every year and we can determine pretty much on average the number of vacancies we're going to have across our facilities, and we try to keep our third-party recruiters at 25% of those vacancies. So we can kind of predetermine every year what that budget is going to look like. Now, granted, going forward, we're in a little bit of a different situation because we've hired more recruiters. So hopefully that'll take the burden off, which might not be great for you guys, but for us to not maybe have as many job casts open at one time. But then it'll also, though, help those agencies that we use focus on very, very critical, hard to fill position. If it's not nursing, then it might be mental health or treatment type of roles that are very difficult for us to fill anyway in a normal environment.
And just curious, while you're going through that, is the budget all centralized, run out of HR or TA, or is it coming from the individual business units?
So the budget is established by TA, but the spend will be attributed to each facility that position is located at.
Okay, interesting. Anyone else thoughts on how you have your strategy set up at the beginning of the year, budgeting?
Hi, this is Amanda Jetta. I work with the Health Plan of San Joaquin, and the budget does come out of talent acquisition, and we budget for that annually. And but we do determine which roles are pushed out to an agency for that support. And it's typically our positions that are either flagged for hard to fill, either by time they've already been opened, and as well as if what the market is doing. So specific roles in specific industries.
That's great. That was actually going to be my next question is how are you all deciding which roles are going out? So is it, do you have earmarked specific locations that have been challenging, specific roles that have been challenging, and you know that those are going to go straight to agency, or is it there's a time limit after something's been open for 30 days, 60 days or whatever, then we're eligible to go? Do you all have set guidelines, or is it kind of played by ear on each role?
I'll jump in. We do not. I don't have any set guidelines. It might be determined by how urgent, how fast we need to fill the role, how hard it is to fill that role, and if I need additional support, or like you said, how long that position has been vacant.
Okay, yeah, interesting. And anyone else? Does anybody have a set guidelines? They're not allowed to go to agency until it's hit 30 days, or they can't use it on certain roles, or?
I mean, our core civic, we usually try to wait about 30 days, only because we want to be able to do some recruiting in-house, put the advertising out there. And as you know, advertising, it might take a couple of weeks to actually saturate the market. So we want to let those things at least try to work before we automatically jump to agency. Now, for some positions, they're on there all the time, like nursing, just because of the high number of vacancies. But other positions that might be more niche, we'll try to wait that 30 days.
Yeah, makes sense. Anyone else? Any other thoughts on that? When you go to...
This is Nicole. I'm with Momentive Performance Materials, a global chemical company, and we do have a guideline. It's a guideline though, so not always followed, but we do recommend that they work with the internal talent acquisition team for about 45 days. I will say in periods where we've had a very lean team, we've kind of been a little bit more strategic and allowed roles to go a little sooner based on location or based on the skill set needed. But we do, when it's out there in our hiring manager resources portal, we refer back to it. We have conversations during the intake, but there are some business units that get around it occasionally.
Yep, makes sense.
I'll add into this because I will say, so I'm Sarah Justice. I work for a Greco, and we utilize criteria. Again, it's guidelines. There may be instances where we look to using agency earlier than this, but it's a combination where we actually have tiers coming up. If it's been 45 days and there's been less than 3 submits by our team internally, then we may look at that, and that goes up incrementally with the longer that it's been open. So it's kind of a two-prong lever where we're looking at what activity we've been able to do and the length of time open. And then there might be some exceptions, hot markets, low supply, or things that we know are generally hard to fill. But that's helped us keep it down and also give some managers some comfort up front if we're talking about those levers that we may pull at a later point during the initial intake meeting.
Yeah, all good points. Yeah. Audra also jumps into the chat and says financial institution here, they don't have set guidelines, but how long it's been vacant and whether it's a unique position. So yeah, sounds like we're kind of all on the same page with this. I'm curious now what you all are seeing over the last couple of years, and it might be a little bit of a roller coaster, right? But what are you seeing as far as trends? Are you seeing, let's start with fees, I guess. Are you seeing fees go up? Are you seeing fees just maybe pricing more divergent based on role and difficulty. I think kind of, maybe 5-10 years ago, right, standard fee was just 20%, right? And now I think at least I see a lot of different fees for different types of roles and different locations. And so I'm curious, is the 20% a thing of the past, or is that is that kind of moving around depending on your industry, your role, and pandemic conditions, that sort of thing? Val, you have a hand raised?
I did. Sorry, I thought I'd be polite this time and raise my hand. Yeah. So what we look at is obviously the critical nature of those vacancies, where they're located, how many they are, and if we're not seeing any movement on the needle, then we look at increasing the fees. And we've done that in a couple areas. One is Arizona and another is Ohio, where we've gone in and we're able to increase that fee to 25%, right? Just to entice the agencies to work a little harder on those. So that is an option that we've done. We don't do it clear across the board. I know Recruitify said, hey, at one point, the industry's kind of that percentage fee is increasing, so we need to all adjust, which was fine. But now we do try to vary that a little bit if we need additional support on a position.
Great. Anyone else? And we'll get back. Well, it sounds like you're a Recruitify user. Maybe we'll go back to like tools in just a minute. So keep that in mind. Anyone else? Trends on like what are you seeing in the marketplace? Even trends at any kind of terms. It could be the cost, the fee percentage. It could be guarantee trends. Are you seeing things change in like the traditional relationship? Let's go with Tyler also being polite. Tyler and Donata being polite with their hands up. Look at this.
Yeah, I like it. Val set the tone. So that's the interesting thing where I've moved to this consulting firm. I never thought I'd be back, quote unquote agency again. I love the internal piece, but that's the feedback we're getting from the majority of our clients, especially during the pandemic. In a sense, they're consistently seeing 20 to 25 and even above 25. And that's why we've kind of try to buck the system and doing, consulting model billable approach, which generally then takes their fee down from, 8 to sometimes 17%, depending on the trickiness of the role and the time it takes. But that's been a huge kind of bane for a lot of our clients, especially since we work with a lot of kind of small to mid startup, disruptor clients who don't have, $300K for budget, and a 25K percentage hit on 150K hire is going to basically submarine that budget for the year. So, that's definitely been kind of, something that's nice that we get to offer, but I've definitely heard it from our clients that it's really tough to get into these engagements. And they know like they're going to be paying, $50K for a 200K hire, and that's half their TA budget for the year.
Thanks.
Yeah, definitely. Donata, do you want to jump in?
Yes, certainly. One of the things that I had done last year was implement a kicker program. And the kicker program was we would keep the fee to the standard amount. But if the agencies got us candidates in a shorter time frame, or the candidates were diverse candidates that would meet some of our our strategic goals, then we would offer the agency an additional kicker on top of the fee, just to reward them for the speed, the urgency, and recognition of the fact that, they were supporting lots of different clients, and also in recognition of the fact that if they were doing diversity recruiting, that they were in those communities, building those relationships, doing that good, hard work. That takes time. And we wanted to just acknowledge and reward those agencies for doing that.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. Yeah. Anyone else doing that? I like that kicker for, diversity, speed, quality. Val mentioned specific locations, hard to fill. Is anybody else doing that with their agencies?
Yeah, we're doing that for our agencies as well. Carlos Cabrera here. Director of Recruitment at Metro Plus here in New York City. We actually have agencies go through an RFP, and part of the RFP process is to have them see that if they're able to recruit qualified candidates for us in a timely fashion, Instead of just 20%, we bump it up to about 22%. Again, this is, going to affect our time to fill here, but we've also gone through, we also have a retainer agency outside of the RFP that we have that goes up to about 33%, which is extremely high, but it is a retainer. But yes, generally speaking, for us, going back to your question here, we've seen in our RFP anywhere from 18 to 20%, which is pretty standard.
Yeah, and I saw in the chat also, Mallory seconds that we've seen an increase in retained search versus contingent, where firms are asking for a non-refundable engagement fee up front. So yeah, and I think that makes sense, right? If the demand has gone up, we didn't magically make more agencies, right? But if the demand has gone up, they have to pick and choose which roles they're going to work on, and the roles that are coming from the people that are putting their money where their mouth is, right? The people that are the companies that are the most serious about it, whether it's through a retainer or these kicker bonuses or something, those are going to attract their attention. So it might not be something that lasts forever, but at least in the current market, I can see why that's the current trend. So Carlos, you brought up you brought up the procurement process. I'm curious, how is everyone sourcing agencies? How are you vetting them? What does your procurement process look like? Or do you have a standard contract? Or is it a long negotiation? Is it like 6 months to get an agency on, at which point now it's kind of like not an immediate need filler, but just kind of a backup plan? Or are you able to turn it around and get a new agency on in a few days?
Yeah, luckily we already have agencies assisting us prior to this RFP. We essentially just added 4 more, actually no, 5 more to the 4 that we already have. Because obviously it is such a lengthy process. Metro Plus is part of New York City Health and Hospital, which is the largest public health system in the country. So we do have to go through a lot of these processes. So right about 6 months is what it takes for all of us, including the agencies, to complete paperwork just to get these RFP completed. So
right.
There's a lot of things that they go through and we go through. There's a panel of executives that vet these agencies. There's presentations. There's lengthy documentation.
Right. Yeah. So it's not on the other side. I hear a lot of hiring manager comes with a candidate that was submitted direct to them and says, hey, this came from an agency, figure out how to get them on. Is anybody dealing with that challenge? Agencies going direct to hiring managers, or does everybody have the Carlos's, metered out approach for to organize RFP process, or how are you all working it?
That happens all the time.
Norm.
Oh,
Go ahead.
no, it's okay.
I was just going to say, I have, I've been in the business for 30 years now, and I have 0 patience and time for the procurement process, which is why when we implemented Recruitify, it was such a seamless and easy process to onboard new agencies. And the procurement team loved it because they didn't have to go through the vetting process that they had to go through. I loved it because it was standardized terms and conditions. And I was able to actually expand the agencies that wanted to partner with us. Whereas when you go through an RFP process in the internal procurement, the goal usually is to restrict the amount of agencies that you're using, which can oftentimes feel like a burden to the hiring managers, especially if you've got new hiring managers. They come with long-standing relationships with agencies that they love. They don't want to eliminate the use of those agencies because they've been working with them for so long. So for me, with 0 attention and patience remaining at the tail end of my career for procurement, that's why the platform service like Recruitify works so well, right? It allows you to expand your agency reach, but also allows you to be compliant with the procurement ideology. So, that's been my experience.
Yeah, cool.
Go ahead, Carl.
Sorry,
I
did
was
somebody
just,
else?
that was the base. I mean, I get that all the time. I mean, I work for a small finance company, and they reach out to every single person that works at the company. So I'm constantly managing that. My question is on Recruitify, because I've heard this now a couple times from different people who've pitched in. Do you find that they give you good quality candidates and that they are filling your roles in a quicker, like a more efficient manner? And, do they work for, tech roles and things like that as well, like really hard to fill tech roles? I'd love to hear about that.
I'm actually getting ready to implement Recruitify tomorrow, and I had the same questions. You can actually bring over the agencies that you value and have your partnerships with. You can bring those over at whatever fee you've already negotiated. So there isn't, an issue there. And then you also have access to the open market if you choose, that offers, like Donata said, just a broader range of potential recruiters that you don't even know exist. And, I think that's part of, our challenge is that I don't know if the recruiters that are working for us agency-wise are the best ones to support the highly technical roles that, we're looking to fill. So I'm actually pretty excited to implement this tomorrow.
Yeah, very cool. Does anyone have answers for the last two questions there? Sarah, you have a hand up. Did you want to share experience or a different topic?
I did. And so I currently use Recruitify in our North America business and have been using it for a little over a year and a half. So we'll say the simplicity there has allowed us, like everyone's saying, to utilize the optimized network for the way Agreco is structured. We have a lot of positions spread out across the US, and everyone always thought we'd have this great database of agencies, which we did not. So it's allowed us to utilize them in niche locations and very quickly, where our procurement process was very lengthy to get them onboarded on an individual basis. So that's been really helpful for us. And then we have brought over some of the agencies that we've historically used. They don't love it, but they will do it if they still want our business, to be fully transparent there. And you have to factor in their take home versus the fee that Recruitify takes as a portion of that. It's just 1%, but still it's important to note that. I will say I am considering expanding it globally. However, and maybe this is the follow-up point, but if there's any Recruitify customers that are using it from a global perspective, I'm interested in the results that are happening there. I'm trying to get the temperament of our organization, whether or not they'd be receptive to that in a global capacity. And I have looked at the fee structures and have been pulse checking that. But just to provide some perspective, it allows me to track my spend, even just justify some position data. We have a hard to fill position, and we had it on the network, and nobody could find candidates. So it just gave us another data point for the manager that they may be looking for a purple squirrel that doesn't exist. So that's been helpful as well.
Great, thanks. We can go if anybody has any answers for that, but I'm curious, Sarah, what regions would you be looking at internationally? Europe, APAC, like what are you, LATAM?
All of those. We're in over 70 different countries, so I think it's pretty expansive there. I've talked a little bit to some of my UK partners. They're a little cautious. So I think it might be a one-off approach as I potentially expand it. But it may be something we consider in the future. Okay, great. We have a couple hands up. Tyler or Val, does anybody want to jump in? Does anybody have something to directly respond to that?
Yeah, mine should be pretty quick. I will echo what Sarah said. Definitely had a couple people that, I think they're titled legacy vendors when I was utilizing Recruitify internally, that didn't love the price cut a little bit, but most jumped on board. mixed bag with results depending on the role. Actually had a couple that agencies I've never heard of before got some of our best candidates, and it was at the much lower rate. So love that on the internal side. And then, I mean, I'll say from an internal user, the UI with Recruitify is fantastic. It's very easy to set up. It's very clean. Your candidate feedback is there. You can interact with your vendors really seamlessly. So I love using that. If I had a need for it still in my current role, I don't. I would use it though. And then it's really obvious when you get new candidates, you can put pre-screening questions. And so for me, who didn't love super in-depth, quantitative, long answer phone screen questions for my team that would just take up extra time, you could put those in there to have the agencies do those questions for you ahead of time and then submit those results for you. I found that cut my team's phone screen times down in half for certain roles, which was a great, time retriever. But then some, tough rec, didn't get much from the non-legacy vendors, also didn't get much from my legacy vendors. So, it's kind of per the world with agencies. Sometimes it's amazing, sometimes it leaves you wanting a little bit, but at the same time, it's a great resource, great UI, really easy and functional to utilize, and an efficient way to save your team some time with, at least on the phone screen process.
Cool. Thanks. Val, you got your hand up?
Yeah, so just to add, I think to the conversation about the quality or the quantity of the candidates, I think it really does vary by the market that you're looking in and the type of position it is. For us, we primarily look for people in the medical field, so that our biggest vacancies are in nursing. So you're looking for 200 nurses across the country. Are you going to be more concerned with only having one candidate that was fully vetted, or have them submit 10 candidates who could do the job, but we need to move them through, get them interviewed and all of that. So we kind of run into a challenge sometimes. It's like, okay, is this nurse truly going to relocate to this remote position, to a prison? Are they going to make it through the process? And we've had many instances where we'll get a lot of candidates, but maybe only one of those actually gets through the process. And is it a matter of them being fully vetted on the back end by the agency, or is it a matter of the nurse just changing her mind? And I think that's a toss-up to make that determination. But for the most part, I think the quality of candidates are good. There many times we're actually sourcing the same candidates. So it would be somebody that I would probably find on Indeed or LinkedIn. So I'm fine with that. But, I think sometimes the agencies for positions that don't require a very in-depth background or technical abilities, it's more of the shotgun approach, right? We're just gonna spray a bunch of candidates at you and hope one of them hits the target. But I'm fine with that with the number of vacancies that I have. So.
Great. All right. And any other thoughts, or anyone else using anything else to manage?
Norm, can I just jump in with one quick question? I just want to make sure the question about international was addressed.
Yes,
Does anybody have any experience using on international hires? Nope.
Well, I know they do in international, and also somebody, Sarah, you said you're in like 70 countries. I think that's kind of their reach, about 70 countries. So
we do, but we only use it in the US and right now.
Yeah.
And Bryn, were you just asking, you doing international hires through Recruitify or just in general?
Well, both. Either way, yeah. I wanted to know if anybody had any experience hiring using agencies internationally, and if anyone had experience using Recruitify internationally.
I mean, we haven't used Recruitify for international. I've done international hires in a previous life for overseas doctors, but here at CoreCivic, we don't hire nurses or doctors or anything like that from overseas or through Recruitify. But we are looking actually at looking at Canada, just for a point of interest for one of our facilities. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah.
This is Nicole. We've used agencies. I oversee regions for like the Americas and Europe, and we use agencies in South America and different locations in Europe. We don't use Recruitify. We use Bounty Jobs, and we just expanded to the UK, but we haven't put a job out there to be filled yet.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe things have changed. I think Bounty Jobs is almost kind of exclusively maybe US, Canada, and I know they were in the UK, but do they do LATAM? And like at least as of like a year ago, they weren't in APAC or LATAM or.
I haven't spoken to them about APAC. They are a little bit more, when I spoke to them, my conversation was focused on Europe in general. So we have a Europe contract and a separate US contract, I should say.
Okay. All right. And any other thoughts in international hiring? Have you found, are there different challenges? What are the challenges of using agencies globally versus in the US? Or do you find that the contracts kind of follow the same, the same lines, the same fees, the same guarantees, everything?
There's some similarities. I think some of the differences is just the difference in how our regions internally approach things. In the US, we have general terms and conditions that we send out to our agencies and kind of have them conform to ours. Like there's some things we can tweak. But in Europe, they send us theirs, and the procurement process is just a little bit different. I see a lot more tiered fees in Europe with our contracts based on the level of the role, and also a tiered guarantee, where in the US, it's a little more like 60 days or a time frame versus a tiered guarantee.
Yeah, definitely. India too has a tiered based on salary bands, and they're range from like 1 month salary, so it's 8.33% up to like 17% or something like that. What are you seeing? I asked that a couple of times, but we kind of got sidetracked. I'm curious, what are you seeing from a guarantee perspective in the US and globally? Anybody can jump in. Are you seeing, like Nicole just said, sort of a 60-day, 90-day, 100% guarantee? Or are you seeing this, sort of prorated, after 30 days, you get 50% back. After, 45 days, you get, less, and it goes down. What is everyone seeing in the market? And has it changed?
60 days.
60 days, that's pretty standard. There's a couple for 60. Anyone else? And is that 100% back during the 60 days? Yeah.
It's more like we'll replace that person for you, and then we'll give you a refund if we can't.
That's what I've seen as well. Either a prorated guarantee or a replacement guarantee.
So I've had challenges in the past with the replacement guarantee. Do you prefer to just get the refund back, or do you find that it's just as good to get the replacement? They're still motivated. They'll still go right back out and find another candidate, because I found that once they have the money, they kind of drag. It's like they're a lot less motivated, I feel like, to go back out and find you another candidate. You kind of go to the back of the line, right?
Yeah, and if it's a hard to fill vacancy, chances are they're going to be hard pressed to find you someone to replace. So that's something that you have to consider. Are they even going to be able to find a replacement?
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. And they also, in that situation as well, you have to let them know, like within 48 hours or something like that. Like they have a very short window. So if you kind of find out about it later, or if they come back to you got to be on top of it. That's the thing.
And I'm actually glad you brought that up, because we do struggle with that just because we have over 15,000 employees all over the country, and HR is localized. So unless HR informs us or processes them in a timely manner as a termination, we don't find out. I mean, we have to stay on those new employees all the time, run reports. When are they getting ready to reach that refund deadline? Make sure, are they there? Are they not there? I mean, it really becomes an administrative nightmare to manage that. And that's more on our end, making sure those steps happen. But when you're dealing with 70+ facilities, and every HR manager at each facility, they're processing them not the same way and not timely, You know, I've lost many, many, many refunds just for that reason.
Yeah.
I have the same problem, Val, that you do. And then also, I don't know about you guys, but if you are recruiting for highly technical roles, 60 days isn't enough time to really assess somebody's ability to function. And I feel like sometimes the terms are kind of laughable in terms of, replacement, because oftentimes we don't really know for 6 months or 7 months. So.
Yeah. Anyone else with the challenges around refunds, replacements, assessing the candidates, getting that? Does anybody have the process figured out where you can actually find out in a timely manner that somebody's left the company? Or?
Somebody has an idea, I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll write it down.
Okay. There's a lot of chatter in the chat about research firms. David asked, does anybody use a hiring research firm or a sourcing agency to help build pipelines for your full-time needs? Donata says yes. Tyler says, yeah, his current firm assists with that. Does anybody want to jump in and expand? And we have a couple of suggestions in the chat too, if people are looking for one. No. Okay. Well, creative alignments, Qual Allegiance, SGA Talent, so KG Tiger. There's a couple of suggestions in there if anybody's interested in going down that path. David, do you want to talk about maybe some of the benefits of using a firm like that as an alternative?
Oh, sure. So I've worked in agency, corporate, and I'm in-house currently. And one of the things that I've observed is a lot of companies that they don't take the time to structure like a deliverable like model, I guess, effectively, in my opinion. And one of the ways that they overlap is a lot of times when they engage with an agency, they don't have a true partnership. They more or less think that, oh, okay, we're going to open it up to agencies, and then they send it out to, X amount. Some places believe that the more the better, which I don't agree with. I think if you're going to engage with agencies of any sort, the key is to have a true partnership with them, so that way they can work as an extension of the internal team. And in cases where a research firm, and I'm going to distinguish between a research firm and a sourcing firm. Research firm is traditionally comes out of like executive search, like retained search firms, where they create like a true profile of people that align with whatever executive role you're trying to fill. And they have internal people that will basically do market intelligence, similar to how like the CIA does for, our politicians or leaders, right? They go out, they assess the marketplace, the labor force, the, top competitors in, your industry, locations, and then they identify the people that at those companies that potentially do that. And then they use that as a data point or talking point to make intelligence-based decisions. So research firms can definitely help you do that, and also can do like talent maps or name generation for you, where if you don't have in-house sourcers, but you're going to hire, endless amount of doctors and nurses, you can have a firm like that do name generation and identify all the nurses in the places that you have, business or do business, and that can be a very, very valuable source for you. And then sourcing agencies can help you generate pipelines. There's a lot of different ones out there. There's a gentleman named Michael Batman Cohen, who runs one that's very effective. And he has a very unique approach. He basically will give you all of the information that they used, and he'll give you all of basically the pipelines of skill sets that that can fill your role. And he'll show you what strings they use, where they found them, what tools, and it's very, data driven. If you want the name of it, I think it's Wayne Technologies is the name of his company.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's right. Going with the Batman theme. Also give a little plug to David. If you're on the call and you happen to be in the Chicago area, David is one of the speakers tonight at a local talk event in Chicago discussing sourcing techniques and building out your sourcing function. And so that's going to be an awesome event. If you happen to be in the area, check it out. Check it out on the platform.
Where is it, Norm? Just for everyone's benefit.
It's in Chicago. It's being hosted at the Walsh headquarters, but I would go on the platform and find the exact address if you're interested in that. So cool. Let's see. Something came up there that I wanted to flag there as, oh yeah, you brought up strategic partnerships with specific agencies. I'm curious, what is everyone's strategy when you go out to agency? Are you going to one agency and just expecting that they understand that are they getting an exclusive on the role, or are you going out to a couple of different agencies and testing the waters?
I usually use more than one. I start with one and then I expand it, but if I lock myself in, then I find myself wanting a lot of times. So I don't want to lock myself into, to that scenario.
Yeah. I mean, there's obviously
I do not do retention. I mean, retainers, unless it's an executive position. And even then, I mean, last retainer we did, we found the candidate, but we paid the big gigantic fee, right? So
right. Yeah. And I think there is a benefit to, if you have a long-standing, if you've been working with a firm for 10 years and they know your company inside and out, I think David said it right, that they're like an extension of your team, then it makes sense to just, okay, lock it in. We're going to go with them. We know they're going to go out and fill this role, but yeah, you don't want to be sitting there for 2 weeks and find out that they come back with nothing and now you've lost 2 weeks, right? So I think it does make sense to maybe give a little jump to someone you trust and then very quickly expand it out to a couple, right? And any other thoughts on that strategy for that? No?
Could I ask another question? I just wanted to go back to kind of the initial sourcing. How do people manage soliciting agencies that just keep bothering you and they call you endlessly and then they call your hiring managers? Is that a problem?
I mean, back when I was internal, the go-to was, hey, you're more than welcome to be, part of our vendor list. We have this great platform that we utilize, Recruitify.com. And if you I think it was what Sarah said or Val said, if you want our business, this is the direction you got to go. And that was a really easy way to weed out who actually cared or who wanted to take some, shots at the wall and hope they could land a commission once in a while. So to those who are asking about utilizing it, that's a great kind of gatekeeper strategy to figure out who's sincere about really wanting your business or who just wants some slinging resumes in your inbox and filling it up.
Yeah, that's exactly what we do. We always refer any vendors that reach out to us directly to join Recruitify because that's the platform we use. So, and I've had 2 or 3, if they reach out to me on LinkedIn or in my email and then they're, emailing my managing director or whoever else, I'm like, nope, they've got to go to Recruitify. So I just have everyone, send them back to Recruitify.
Sarah, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I will say I do that as well. To be honest, I have 2 different responses that I send. If it's just a general reach out, then I direct them generally back to Recruitify and that makes sense. But I will say I have gotten feedback from agencies that they'll go and fill stuff out and then they don't ever hear anything. So there's not really that connection point unless you invite them as a legacy agency or using the agency portal. So sometimes if they are sending out a candidate, sometimes, they reach out with, we have a person that, has this type of background. And if it actually looks viable, then what I will do is actually have a different response to say, I've invited you via Recruitify, connected you to this job if you want to join our platform. Then that does a better connection point. So it's kind of 2 different things there. I just have my general response to get them into the agency vendor list. But if I want to connect them and it looks like there's viability, I don't usually give them an option to come back with a fee to me. I say, here's the optimized fee, go for it. If you want it, great. It kind of depends. But then you also do have the ability to kind of if you talk to them and it's truly vetting, just invite them under whatever terms you want.
Cool. Yeah. A couple of things. One in the chat while you were talking, Bryn posted a link to show how, I guess that's how I'll link how Recruitify then diverts soliciting agencies. And Laura says agencies are annoying. I basically just ignore them unless we need them for a super niche area. And anything to add to that, Laura, or how's that ignoring going for you?
It's going okay. So they know that I work in financial services in New York City for a small wealth management company, and they know that we use agencies. But I like the reality is I can't even answer all their phone calls. So I'm generally letting them go to voicemail. And if they keep emailing me, I'll respond. But I probably, and right now I'm getting a ton of asks because, the business is slowing down. So we're being bombarded, like I'm sure all of you are, with agencies. So it's going okay. And we have relationships with long-term agencies who know our hiring managers, know the teams, know the players, and that works really well for us. And they also understand the culture of Bessemer Trust and who it is we like to hire and, what kind of firms we like to pull them out of and that sort of thing. So that's helpful.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Tyler, is your hand still up from before, or did you put it back up?
Yeah, Carlos I think Carlos was talking about how during their RFP process, they have a vetting process, right? And, some of that kind of try before you commit. And so one tactic I was using with Recruitify is agency we've never heard of, no relationship, zero proven, maybe they're an upstart, go through Recruitify, fill 3 roles for us at that rate, then we can talk about renegotiating. So it's a good way to get them a little bit more on the hook, show us what you can do. You're still getting paid for it. Yes, it's probably not your standard rate, but you come through, you knock it out of the park, you're going to have a lot of loyalty on our end. And then we can talk about renegotiating that rate closer to your normal rate. And that was like that next tier step then for kind of vetting who's really going to be committed and be that partner you're looking for, and more of a consultative approach than just a resume, slingshot.
Nice. Yeah. So you promote them to being a preferred vendor at that point. So yeah. Cool. Let's see. What else? Is there anything else? We have a couple more minutes left. So I'm curious, has the conversation not gone in a direction that you had questions about? Does anybody have any questions for the group on challenges you have, or want to share things that are working really well for them?
One question that came up earlier in the chat I noticed was talking about the difference between using, staffing firms for contract roles and agencies for full-time direct roles. And I'm wondering if people have experience, if that's also, if the contract, managing contract roles is also a challenge, and if it's the same agencies.
Yeah, and a lot of times that's managed through different departments. I'm curious how much you all are in charge of that versus that's managed through a different part of the company.
I can jump in here, Norm. Usually, when you get to the Fortune 100 level companies, it's a totally different process. It's managed by, a category labor manager, and talent acquisition might have oversight responsibility for that, but the day-to-day management of that is done by either a prime vendor or a collective of vendors, or the procurement department.
Yeah, is that everybody's experience? I definitely know that that's how it works at big companies. Is anybody at a smaller firm where you're managing the day-to-day for contract temp workers? Okay. Laura says IT contract roles are managed by Randstad. Other
Maternity leaves.
Maternity leaves. There you go.
Maternity leave.
Other maternity leaves.
Yeah.
I should know that. My wife's on it. Other maternity leaves managed by HR with a search firm.
With a temp agency, essentially. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense. Okay. Any other questions? Other challenges that you have you want to ask the group?
Can I ask one more question? Is everybody's goal to sort of, reduce agency spend over the next couple of years, kind of keep it the same and just have it as a strategic option? Or is it to increase agency usage? Kind of what's the attitude to agencies going forward?
Reduce. Reduce. We did all of our recruiting through agencies before they hired me. And the whole point of hiring, a talent acquisition team is to reduce that spend. There are going to be times where you need it, but we actually, even when we go out to agency, we source our own as well, because sometimes, a good majority of the time we find the candidates ourselves, and that's a nice win for us. And so, that we actually do agency savings calculations at the end of the year to show our value to the organization.
Yeah. And Pearl, are you then actively sourcing, or do you just kind of passively still have like your ads up or it's up on your career page? Are you actively going in and trying to do Booleans and so are you competing directly against the agencies?
We do it as a backstop because I don't want to be sitting and it's really interesting because agencies are having just as hard of a time as we are, quite frankly, because we're looking at, senior DevOps and some really technical roles that are very hard to fill. Plus we're not at the height, we're not at 90 percentile in terms of compensation and things to that nature. We're a fully remote company that's very, very flexible. You can work in Costa Rica, you can work wherever you want, which is really cool. And we get a lot of interest in that. But I can never, be in a position where I don't have qualified candidates. And so we just work alongside the agency. Obviously we want to give them the business, but for me, I can't be stuck without candidates. So, so that's why, and we're a smaller company too. So maybe that's easier for me and my team to do that. But I wouldn't say we're trying to compete with them. I'm just saying that we want to make sure that we're not falling behind if agencies cannot perform on the search.
I know we're coming up in the hour. I just have one last question. I've increasingly seen companies use what I call a divide and conquer strategy, which is they upfront determine if the job is going to be really hard to fill, and instead of competing with them, they outsource a portion of the hires up front. And obviously the agencies like that better because they're not sort of getting a stale job. And in the effect can often be to compress time to hire for the other jobs as your TA team is more effective on the roles that they're focused on. Does anybody deploy that technique, and does anybody have any experience with that? Okay. No worries.
Okay.
Something
Well, yeah, we are at time.
Okay,
Bryn, do you want to roll us out here?
Yep. Thank you very much, everyone. Really great to see you all. Great session. We'll do more of these in the future. There's, by the way, we've had a bunch of live talk events this week. I'm in Austin, Texas, and there's one tonight here. So if you're in Austin, come and we'll buy you drinks. And Norm is going to be.
And David is in Chicago. So if you're in one of those three cities, we have come by, grab a drink.
Fly in. All right. We'll see you next week.
All right.
Cheers, everyone. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Thank you.
All right.